you would just, I know you 4-H was very foundational in your upbringing. So can you talk about that and just what that was like?
Just yesterday for another occasion, I said I got my start in 4-H. That's something we've said in the 4-H program here in Ohio and nationally, sort of calling out the people that really have had that as a formative experience. In my community, I live just outside of Dublin here in central Ohio as an early 4-Her, and that was the thing you did. We had really robust clubs, and it was a great experience. Back here on the shelf behind me, I still have my 4-H rabbit trophy from my demonstration. I think my second year in 4-H club. But it was through 4-H that I actually, about that time, the mid-'60s, discovered entomology. We were at the Union County Fair in Marysville, looking around at exhibits, and there were some bug collections. And my best friend at the time and I thought, we could do that. And I was 11 years old and never looked back. So I want to emphasize it's not just the subject matter, and I did stick with that subject matter. I have an undergraduate degree from Ohio State in entomology and two graduate degrees at the University of Illinois, and have made a career as an entomologist. But it really was the emphasis on community, the emphasis on communication, the emphasis on teamwork, the emphasis on leadership, quite frankly, with the positions within a club and the levels of responsibility that, as I look back now, were the real messages. It turns out that the project, whether it's sewing an outfit or collecting bugs or taking a steer to the county fair, is just the hook that gets young people in for a really formative experience. And I've carried that with me forever.
You left Ohio State for a period of time, but then, of course, came back. What was it like to come back home to your home university, but then also your home college and kind of, you steered the ship over there for a while.
Well, in 2012, I had the chance to come back as the Vice President for Agricultural Administration and Dean of the College of Food, Ag, and Environmental Sciences. And it was a little bit like a dream. I had a terrific career at Penn State. I started in 1988 as an assistant professor in entomology. And by the time I left in 2012, I was Dean of the College of Agricultural Sciences there. And that institution, another incredible land grant, gave me so many opportunities to grow as a professional in so many ways that I'll always have a place in my heart for the Nittany Lions. Not every day of the year, mind you, but always will have a place in my heart. But the fact is that there is something to be said for coming home. I'll tell you, just out of clarity, I did not take the job at Ohio State to come home. I took it because I saw potential here. I saw a university that had committed to the right things. I saw a university that was making an intentional effort to underscore working across boundaries. We have colleges and we have departments, but it's really the power of a place like Ohio State thinking about the entire university that is the magic. That's the thing that gives us our ability to change society. And Ohio State had made that commitment. I love the fact that the College of Food, Agriculture, and Environmental Sciences not only had a strong national and international reputation, but also was committed to education at a variety of levels. Our graduate programs are strong. Our undergraduate programs prepare students to be incredible in the workforce when they leave. And we'd had a now more than 40-year commitment to a 2-year degree opportunity at the Agricultural Technical Institute on our Worcester campus. That's something that is relatively uncommon among agriculture and related science colleges, and I felt that I wanted to be a part of that. When I arrived back, it was amazing. I knew people everywhere I traveled. Relatives in some cases, but a lot of friends. I was a county extension agent down in Claremont County in southwestern Ohio back in the early 80s. And so just that feeling of connection and the rediscovery of what Ohio State means to the state of Ohio was really very special. And then when I had the chance to come here to Bricker Hall as a provost, uh, just an amazing opportunity. You know, I look out my window at the Oval and see sidewalks I walked on, not only as a student, but as a child. My mom worked in this building when I was 4 years old. And, you know, just that connectivity is so unanticipated. It's really a thrill.
Talk about your tenure as dean over in the College of Food, Ag, and Environmental Sciences. I'm sure there were struggles. I had a staff interview yesterday with Dr. Emily Buck, and she said, you know, you really kind of steered the college into a new era. I'm sure there were struggles. Can you talk about some of those? And then what was your greatest accomplishment as dean of the college?
You know, I had the privilege of being dean for 3 years, and you know, following Bobby Moser in 20 plus year tenure as dean was a wake up call for everyone. You know, when you've got someone who has that history of leadership, any change is going to be something that you know, people are watching to see how it goes. I think the thing that you know, was the biggest issue for me was when you come into a new complicated system, understanding how history has formed how you're operating and what changes you might be interested in making that actually not only build from that history and are respectful from it, but are a positive way of actually pivoting to a future perspective. And you know, we have the great good fortune of having multiple locations in that college around the state that help us reinforce the connections. Um, the ability to work to bring the Worcester campus closer to the full college approach to doing business was something that I worked hard to start. I wanted to be respectful of that incredible history that we have with the OARDC and ATI at Worcester. But yet there were things that just for historical reasons were still points of separation. You know, I used to joke that when I went up to Worcester, and I was there about every 7 or 8 business days for 3 years. So, you know, spent a lot of time getting to know that campus. But I joked that my first visits there, that first spring and summer in 2013, I could actually tell where the dividing line was between ATI and OARDC because the grass would be different heights, because we had 2 different crews mowing the grass. And so we worked really hard to bring things together. And the new science building that's being built there actually is a testament to the outcome of that thinking, something that I think our colleagues on that campus have fully embraced. But it makes sure that we've got great science and discovery of new ideas happening essentially in the same spaces where we're training the next generation of professionals who are going to take advantage of that. So I look now, nearly 8 years later after I first arrived here, and my successors have really continued to build on some of the things that we started working on early on.
Very good. I know you're involved with Feeding America. What does it mean to you to give back to the community and to the great state of Ohio?
Well, you know, one of the things, Colt, that I have really embraced as I've learned more about the food system throughout my career, and, you know, my entomology work took me around the world. And, you know, I've actually physically done work in, you know, all but 4 or 5 countries in Latin America. I've been in Africa many times. And so I've seen food insecurity in a very different lens. And what Feeding America has done, which is the largest charity of its type in the world, what Feeding America has done is actually helped me understand that you don't have to travel to another continent to really address these problems. We've certainly seen it recently with the COVID crisis, that this is not just a public health crisis due to a virus. It's a public health crisis that has infused itself into issues of addiction and abuse in homes and communities. But food insecurity has absolutely been amplified as we've looked at the disparities. Feeding America is a wonderful reminder to me of the impact that we can have through people helping people. For me, it's a natural next step from my own history of being part of Extension, which is committed to taking new ideas to make people's lives better out into their communities. And Feeding America has very much that same philosophy.
You mentioned the pandemic, and I think this is a natural transition. Talk about leading such an iconic, I want to say, brand. International recognition. There's all these people. You're steering the ship as far as I, as a student, can tell. Your name's on the emails. What's it like to lead the university through such uncharted waters?
Yeah, I do apologize for all those emails first and foremost. I
Don't
realize
apologize. They're great. I
there are a bunch of
appreciate them.
there are a bunch of them that have flown around. 6 months ago, we made a really, really difficult decision to actually send people away from campus. And it was a really hard thing to work our way through. If I'd only known at that point that that was the easy part, that the hard part, maybe 100 times harder, is figuring out how to bring people back in a safe manner. I might have had a different perspective at the time. We have been in uncharted waters. I actually used this metaphor a couple of different times. We're in a place, we don't have a map. There's no map to guide us here. But the good news is that even though we don't have a map, we do have a North Star. And the North Star is the mission of this university, and it has not diminished in its brightness at all. There's never been a more important time for a place like Ohio State to continue to discover, to continue to teach, to continue to engage with communities. If you think what our Wexner Medical Center has done throughout this crisis in terms of treating patients and being a catalyst for research to actually come up with the next generation of thinking about how you deal with these things. Our public health experts draw on people from food, ag, and environmental sciences, people from the College of Veterinary Medicine, arts and sciences, engineering, unexpected places around the campus to come up with ideas about how not only Ohio State can function safely, but also how universities and society more broadly can function safely. It is just extraordinarily complicated. It's required incredible teamwork by a lot of people, from leaders all the way down through faculty and staff, cooperation from our students. It is a community effort, Kolt.
I'm sure, especially now, it can be some days a challenge to roll out of bed. You aren't making maybe some popular decisions. I cite the spring break decision. Those aren't certainly popular, but maybe very necessary. What keeps you going through all of this?
I thrive because of that mission. My leadership philosophy has always been, and keep in mind, I'm trained as an entomologist, not a specialist in leadership. There's a whole separate scholarship of leadership, and I've kind of been a practical learner of that direction. But the thing that really just energizes me is the success of people around me. And so even when you're making a hard decision, even when you're making a decision that you know could have unpopular reception, if in fact you're anchored to that principle, if your eye is on that North Star of the mission, and you're doing everything you can to advance the success of the people in our community, that's the thing that keeps you going. And we see these little successes all the time. It's exchanging ideas at all different levels and hearing the creativity and hearing how people are able to accomplish things even under difficult odds. That's what I think most leaders feed on. And it certainly is what drives me. I'll tell you, I'm the eternal optimist. Before I go to bed at night, I fill a glass about 50%. So in the morning, when I get up, the glass is always half full there on the table. It's just a silly little thing that's a reminder to me of how important it is to approach each day fresh, because there are going to be not only new challenges, and you know that, but there are going to be some incredible stories. There are going to be some extraordinary opportunities.
What advice do you have for Buckeyes with regard to the pandemic, but also stepping away from that and just in life as they maybe are just coming in or are maybe headed out, into the workforce or whatever? What advice just do you have?
Well, first of all, mask up. Let me just tell you, these things work. They make a difference. It's annoying. My glasses steam up. It's hard to go in and out of buildings. Um, sometimes you have to enunciate very clearly, but these little things work. Over the summer, we moved 30,000 pieces of furniture out of classrooms and shared spaces here on campus so that we could reinforce appropriate distancing. We need to break this cycle of this infection, and that only happens if we behave as a community. We need to be the model. This is the message to the Buckeye community. We need to be the ones that are setting the standard and show this can be done. We can actually resume our activities more and more closely to normal, and the future will be different. Another year, Kolt, we would have been sitting across the table having this conversation, and we're doing it virtually, and that's become the coin of the realm. The fact is that a lot of what we do in the future will be the result of learning from these past 6 months of the things we're able to do. Let's have Ohio State be the flag bearer here. We're the group that actually can say, this is the way you do it right, folks. And the benefit to society, even though we're suffering some pain now, and so many people have been touched directly by this pandemic, with nearly 200,000 fatalities in the U.S. to date. This is a real problem that has touched family after family, community after community. Our job is to help break that cycle and make sure that we bring the best of what Ohio State can carry to the table back to society as quickly as possible.
A final thought: you started at Ohio State as an undergraduate student. Now you're in the position you're in now. How has Ohio State changed? Kind of ignoring the pandemic, how has Ohio State changed in that time?
Well, it's a very different place. In fact, we just had some conversations this week about our next enrollment plan. We put together guidance, and we'll work with our new president, President Christina Johnson, in developing this. But we put together guidance that actually shapes the way we think about how many students we're going to have, what kind of things they're going to study, and the like. And that world is just so fundamentally different. Every year you see new majors and new topics of study emerging that lead to new kinds of careers for our graduates. The pace of discovery, we're nearly $1 billion a year in our research productivity here at Ohio State. And the ideas that are being generated are just, they continue to change the world. I guess what I would say is there are fundamental things that stand. Education for citizenship is the model of this university. We're in our 151st year as a university. In fact, just yesterday was Founders Day, the celebration of the first day of classes back in 1873, when we finally brought students onto campus. There are elements of what Ohio State is all about that are rock solid foundation that we continue to build on. And the exciting thing is the fact that we change with the times, we evolve. And in fact, we're not following that change, we're leading that change. And so, I am consistently amazed at what this place looked like when I was first introduced to it in the 60s, when I was a student in the 70s, when I was an extension agent in the 80s, and then these last 8 years that I've been back. a lot of iconic places still resonate, but there's a lot of different things being done in those buildings, and they'll continue to change. Our job is to create the future, and you only do that if you have that eye on the future and you embrace change rather than run from it.